Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you on this particular video of Prince Civil Services. Myself Chitranshu Pandey is going to start a new series on YouTube in which we are going to discuss some previous year questions of history, which is obviously multiple choice questions which were asked in various competitive exams like UPSC and state PCS exams. This session and each video of this session is going to help you in solving all the previous year questions which were asked in various exams, and this will also prepare you for the upcoming exam questions on the basis of the previous year question. As you know very well that history is always an integral part of any competitive exams. Mostly all the exams, more than 20% questions have been asked from history, and in history the most discussed and most factual topic is considered as the medieval history. As you know me very well that in last year I have started a similar series in which I discussed some questions of ancient history, and almost we solved each and every chapter MCQs of ancient history. In this session from today, we are going to upload a weekly video in which again I will continue that series from the last year, and I'm going to discuss some questions from medieval history. As you know, medieval history, there are almost 5 to 6 questions can be seen in every exam, and since it's the most factual topic, that's why a lot of students either skip this topic or this particular topic is very tough for some students. That is why I am going to continue with medieval history. Further, we will also discuss some previous year questions of modern history as well. So from this session, let's start the questions one by one. Remember two things, that medieval history has most of the facts of the history. That is why some questions are going to be one-liner and direct to the point, which belong to some facts. Also, in UPSC like exams, there are very minimum questions from the last 2 decades of medieval history. The reason is very simple. Either UPSC has asked most of the questions from the last 3 to 4 decades, or they are digging deep in the topics and picking some questions from the optional level so that students of optional can only solve these questions, and we need to study medieval history and other parts of history in more depth. So we need to be aware about the previous year question. Second point to remember in this session is that this particular session belong to UPSC, but also I have picked some important questions of different chapters from other state PCS exams as well. So for you students who are preparing for RAS, UPPSC, UKPSC, Bihar PSC or MPPSC, this video is going to help all of them as well. So if you are preparing any kind of competitive exam, this session will help you a lot in solving the questions which belong to medieval history section. So let's start this session with our first question and first video, where we are going to start from the early medieval history. And you know it very well that early medieval history is a kind of overlapping phase between ancient and medieval history. Most of the books you will read will have ancient history till 750 AD, because after 750 AD, you know it very well that the invasion of Muhammad bin Qasim happened, and history moves on to the next chapter of medieval history, where some parts of India, starting from Sindh to northern India, Islamic invaders tried to capture some parts. It was started by Muhammad bin Qasim, followed by the Mahmud of Ghazni as well as Muhammad Ghori. So from 750 AD to 1206 AD, where actually the Delhi Sultanate begins, this particular phase of around 500 years or 450 years, it belongs to early medieval history. So we will start questions from 750 AD, and we will also try to explain or discuss the each and every option as well. Remember, there is no benefit if you just read the question and found the answer and you tick the answer that this one is correct. In the modern day competitive exams, you need to also know that why the other three options are not correct. Because this is the most important thing, because when you prepare all the four options, you actually prepare four different angles or dimensions of that particular topic. So we will try to maintain that flow by solving all these options as well. Obviously, in one-liner questions, that will be easy, but in the conceptual question or multiple options based on statement, where there we will discuss more in depth, right? So let's start our session with our first question. That is going to be a one-liner question, belongs to 750 AD. As you can read the question as well, and also the examination in which that particular question was asked, this is mentioned in the board. You can see that is a simple question, and that belongs to MPPCS. As you know, the state MP concludes the exam of MPPCS, and this question was asked there, and a lot of other exams this question was asked. This is a very simple question. Where is Mecca? So if you have read history in depth, you know it very well that Mecca is a place where Islam actually originated. The founder of the Islamic religion is known as Hazrat Muhammad or Pagambar Hazrat Muhammad. And you know it that Mecca is the birthplace of Hazrat Muhammad. So actually especially when I start teaching medieval history, my first chapter is always the rise of Islam or the origin of Islam. Because if you understand the theory belongs to rise of Islam, you actually understand why the first invasion of Arabians, or we can say in other language, in the other part, that first invasion of Islam occurred in India by Muhammad bin Qasim. That is why this is going to be our first question. And you know it very well that Makkah was the place where Hazrat Muhammad was born. And similarly, in the same country, there's another place called Medina, which two are the most visited pilgrimage sites of Islam, and that is also known as Hajj. These two belongs to the life of Pagambar Hazrat Muhammad. Makkah was the birthplace, and Medina was the place where actually Hazrat Muhammad died. So in the Makkah is in Arabian Peninsula, and the country nowadays where Makkah is situated is known as Saudi Arabia. So you know it that Makkah belongs to Arabian Peninsula. Obviously, on that time when Hazrat Muhammad born, there was no country like Saudi Arabia, but in the present scenario, the country which covers the region of Makkah and Medina is known as Saudi Arabia. So simply the answer is D, Saudi Arabia. Now let's move on to the next question. The next question was asked in UPPSC 1991. In this question, again, this question belongs to rise of Islam. And that is why I always say that we should start preparing medieval history with the origin or the rise of Islam. Because a lot of questions were directly asked from this chapter. This question says that when Muhammad bin Qasim conquered Sindh, as I told earlier in this video, that history of pre-medieval India begins with the invasion of Islam or Arabian in India. Since Sindh was a part of India, and right now maximum portion of Sindh belongs to Pakistan, but on that time there was no Pakistan, and Sindh was an integral part of India. So Sindh was invaded by Muhammad bin Qasim. And the question here is that when this particular event happened, and this event happened in 712 AD. So the correct answer is C. But you should know some other things as well. That who was Muhammad bin Qasim? Second question, why did he invade in India? And third and most important question is that what were the impacts or consequences of this particular invasion? Then you can prepare this question. So first thing first, why Muhammad bin Qasim invaded India? It was very simple to understand that Islam was always an expansionist religion. And in that time when Islam was spreading around Arabian Peninsula, a lot of local rulers, or you can say feudals under Islamic Caliphate, started in invading several other parts of the world. In that, the Al-Hazzaz, the governor of the region which belonged to the border of India, sent his own son-in-law, Muhammad bin Qasim, to India to invade Sindh. And there were two reasons. The first one was the temporary reason, which was given by Al-Hazzaz, that a lot of Sindhi pirates in the region of Sindh have looted the ships of Arabians. On the other hand, the actual and the most important reason was that Al-Hazzaz wanted to expand the empire of Islam in the eastern phase, which belongs to obviously Sindh, India. So these are the two main reasons why Muhammad bin Qasim invaded India. When it happened? In 712 AD. On that particular time, Sindh was ruled by a Hindu Shahi dynasty and ruler was Dahir. He was defeated by Muhammad bin Qasim. But this was not a very in-depth invasion because 713 AD Muhammad bin Qasim returned to Arab. And there were not a very long-term impacts on Indian, you can say, political system. But still, this is considered as the first invasion of Islam and first invasion of Arabians. Now let's move on to the next question, which was asked in UPSC lower subordinate exam in 2004. This is another very good question. And you know it very well that most of the exams in the modern time are now asking questions based on assertion and reason. These are very typical and complex questions for some of the students, that they don't understand that which option should be correct. Let me give you a trick. This is very simple to solve until or unless when you use a word. Remember, you should use a word here, and that word is because. Whenever you see such type of questions, add a word because here, because when you are going to read the assertion, read it in fluent way with the reason as well, and add the conjunction word because. Now let's read the question in one flow. Muhammad Ghazni or Mahmud Ghaznavi, whatever you say, invaded India 17 times because he wanted to establish permanent Muslim empire in India. Now remember, this is a one single line, and whenever you find that there is something is not correct in this particular statement, always remember, if there is an factual error or there is something that is not seen, that doesn't seem very even, that seems odd, you should know that there is two options which you should tick. Either A is true or either either A is false or R is false. But when you find that all the statements belong to assertion and reason are factually correct, then you should forget these two options. And this particular C option or D option cannot be your answer. So we are now left with the two options, that either the reason is explaining the assertion in a right way, or the reason is not the explanation of assertion. So that is why I gave you a trick. So you need to remember two things. The first thing is, if you find any factual error in these two statements, when you read it jointly, then either C or D is your correct answer. And when you read these two statements jointly with the conjunction of because, and you find that there is something not correct, it does not mean that it is factually incorrect, that is not balancing the statement, that means either A or B is your answer. Now let's move on the questions again. Mahmud Ghaznavi invaded India 17 times, that is actually factually correct. The invasion happened from 1001 to 1028 AD. There were 17 different time invasions of Mahmud Ghaznavi, and he invaded two times the Gujarat Somnath temple in 1025 and 26. So this statement is factually correct. Now come to the reason. He wanted to establish permanent Muslim empire in India. What do you think? Is this statement is also correct? The answer is no. If you have read this particular topic in depth, you know it very well that Mahmud Ghaznavi had no desire to establish a permanent empire in India. And it's very common, you just need your common sense to know that if any person desiring to establish a permanent empire, then why he will invade 17 times, right? So he did not wanted to establish a permanent empire. He actually wanted to loot India and return to the Ghazni. So this particular reason is actually factually incorrect. And when I said earlier that if any one statement in both of them is factually incorrect, then you should take either C or D. And since reason is not correct, then the answer should be A is true, but R is false. So C is the answer here. I hope you got the point that how you can solve these questions in an easy way. Now let's move on to the next question. This is again a one-liner question which was asked in UP Lower Subordinate Exam 2005. And this particular question is now saying that who among the following was the founder of Ghaznavid dynasty? Now this is a very easy question if you know the history of Ghaznavid dynasty. But some of them who have some knowledge about Mahmud Ghaznavi, they will easily take that Mahmud Ghaznavi was the answer, is the answer. But this Mahmud Ghaznavi is not correct. Because Mahmud Ghaznavi was a ruler of Ghaznavid dynasty, that is correct. But he was not the founder. This dynasty was founded by Alaptagin. Remember my point, Alaptagin is considered as the founder of this dynasty. Because Alaptagin was the person who disintegrated Ghazni from Safavids and founded a new dynasty which capital was Ghazni. And he was succeeded by Subuktigin, his own slave, Turkish slave. A slave was very common at that time. And then Subuktigin's son Mahmud succeeded him. And he was responsible to invade India 17 times, as we studied earlier in the last question, right? So the answer is Alaptagin, neither Subuktigin nor Mahmud, and Ismail was no one in this particular topic. It is just an option which was created to distract us, and Mahmud is not correct, Subuktigin is not correct, actually Alaptagin is correct. I hope you got my point. So we did not just read the question and find the answer. We actually discussed a lot of things about Ghaznavid dynasty. That was Safavids, that was Alaptagin, then there was Subuktigin, then there was Mahmud Ghaznavi, then there were 17 invasions of Mahmud Ghaznavi, then there was Somnath temple invasion 2 times, then he died in 1030 AD, and that's how the first invasions of Ghazni happened. Not Arabians, Ghazni. Now let's move on to the next question. This question seems again very simple, but I know a lot of students will answer it wrong. The question is, Al-Beruni came to India in. This question was again asked in a lower division exam of UP. I found this question very interesting and very, you can say, confusing. That is why I picked this question. The options are very simple. Either it is 9th century, 10th century, 11th century, or 12th century. Now, if you know that who is Al-Beruni, then you can answer this question. But if you have just figured out that Al-Beruni was a companion of Mahmud Ghaznavi who invaded India 17 times, then you will answer it wrong. Now let's discuss. Al-Beruni was actually a companion who was in the army of Ghaznavi, as well as he was a great writer of that time who wrote a famous book called Tarikh-e-Hind. What was the name? That was Tarikh-e-Hind, which is also known as Kitab-e-Hind. And as you can see, Hind is mentioned, which means this was the first writing or first text which belongs to the history of Indian subcontinent from the point of view of Islamic rulers. So Al-Beruni wrote a lot of things about Mahmud Ghaznavi, obviously, and his invasions of India, as well as some contemporary political, social, and cultural things of India. So this particular text is very important to understand the philosophy behind this invasion, to understand the contemporary situation of India of that time when Ghaznavi invaded India. And as you can know, understand that this particular invasions happened in from 1001 to 1028 AD. That means this was which century? Obviously 11th century, right? So if you were thinking that 10th century is the right answer, that is wrong. If you were thinking 9th or 12th century, that is a blunder. This is not wrong. You are not confused. You are completely lost. So the confusion should be between 10th and 11th, and the answer is 11th century. Right? So this is not an easy question. This is a tough question. This is a very confusing question. That 11th century is the answer. Now let's move on to the next question. The next question is again a one-liner to the point question, but that is a bit confusing again. The question is, after the attack of Mahmud Ghaznavi, who among the following reconstructed the Somnath temple? Now you know it very well that Mahmud Ghaznavi invaded Somnath temple in Gujarat 2 times, from 1025 to 1026 AD. But this particular question is not asking about that. It is asking about the further implications, that who reconstructed that Somnath temple, which was restricted by Mahmud Ghaznavi and his army. So you should be aware about the ruler of that particular time. That is the answer. Now let's find out what is the correct answer. Bhimaraj first is there, Mool Raj is there, Bhim Dev is there, and Jai Singh Siddhi Raj is there. This is a confusing question again. Now if you have read it, then you can answer it easily. The correct answer, there is no concept behind it. The correct answer is Bhim Dev. He was the ruler of that time when Ghaznavi invaded, and he reconstructed the Somnath temple and established the, you can say, prestige of that temple again. So B is going to be your answer. There is nothing to discuss more. You just need to know the actual answer. Now let's move on to the next question again. So this is going to be our last question of this particular session. This is going to be a big and conceptual question. You can see that this question was asked in UPSC prelims 2022. This is very latest question, and you need to understand all the things clearly. This is a question which was asked from history as well as some current events. This is a good example to show those who think that history is just a topic of past events. No. The current events also impact the topics of history in the past. And this is the perfect example to understand why we should also be aware about all the events happening in the present time, which belongs to some monuments or historical things. Now let's discuss this question. The Prime Minister recently inaugurated the new circuit house near Somnath temple. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the Somnath temple? The question was asked because recently Prime Minister Narendra Modi established something there. So this is a current question, right? But some statements, when you will read, you will find it the question belongs to history. That is why I said this is a question of history plus current affairs. Now let's see the first question. Somnath temple is one of the Jyotirling shrines. What do you think? That is correct. Jitni bhi Jyotirlings are available in India right now are the pilgrimage sites of Savaist and Hindus. Somnath temple is one of the most important Jyotirling. So this one is obviously a correct statement. A description of Somnath temple was given by Al-Beruni. So you know it very well. Both statements does not belong to current events. As I discussed earlier in the last question, that Al-Beruni was the writer who was the companion of Mahmud of Ghazni when he visited India, and he discussed the social, cultural, and geographical, political history of India of contemporary time. That means he will definitely discuss Somnath temple. So with use of your common sense, you can answer this statement is correct as well. The most difficult, the most contemporary issue of that time when this question was asked, the point which actually behind this question is the third one. Pran Pratishtha. Now what is Pran Pratishtha? Whenever a temple or any religious site is being constructed, the first thing जिसे कहते हैं नींव डालना is known as प्राण प्रतिष्ठा, मूर्ति की स्थापना करना. Of Somnath temple, that means installation of the present day temple, as I said earlier, was done by President S. Radhakrishnan. Now again, some will find it very tough that who laid the Pran Pratishtha of Somnath temple, how can I know? But for me, this is a question, this is the point of common sense. It is very common to understand when India became independent nation. Who was the first president of India? You all know it very well from your childhood that the Rajendra Prasad is the first president of India. And actually the first president of India, Rajendra Prasad, inaugurated Somnath temple or installed the temple again, not Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. That means this statement is actually not correct. This was the point jahan pe you will find it hard to get the answer. So first, second, both statements are correct, but the third statement is not correct, and it is asking that find the correct ones. This one answer should be 1 and 2 only. A is the right answer, right? So A is the right answer which you need to answer the question. That's it from my side in this today's session. I hope you got some new information about your medieval history. Let's meet another week with another interesting questions to discuss more about our history, and let's make our life, our career much better by reading, by studying the things which are important in some exams. Thank you so much.